So you're here for the sauce. Well, you came to the right place. Welcome back to Listen. In today's video, we're going to be going over the Runick Primite deck profile, as well as a few replays in the back just to show you some of the examples we're talking about. But for the players that are here from the replay video, this is the best version of our Primite Runick deck that you saw, plus a few changes that you might consider making if you want to be taking this deck to the next level. But let's get right in the deck list. And now we're going to start off with the Runick cards because the majority of players already know what they do. So to start things off is the go-to 3 of Runick Tip. And that's because as many tips as Konami will give us, we will take. And then following suit is a 3 of Runick Freezing Curses, 3 Runick Destruction, as well as 3 Runick Flashing Fire. After that, we have the most important Runick card, and that is Runick Fountain, because without that, none of this is possible. Following suit, we have 2 of Runick Slumber. And then the last Runick spell card in the deck is a 1 of, and that is Runick Dispelling. And again, displacing a card for your opponent's hand, never a bad option. But flowing more into the Primite side of the deck, we do have another 3 of, and that is Heat Wave. And this is where we begin to have a little fun with the deck, because Heat Wave lets us not only shut off our opponent's basically full turn, but with the way the Runicks play is you can actually use their quick play abilities to summon out Hugin or Jerry even, search for your fountain, and then during your main phase, you can rip the Heat Wave and prevent your opponent from summoning for their entire turn. And then, since all the Primates are basically revolving around normal monsters, all their summons get around the Heat Wave as well. Now diving into the Primite support, we have one of the best cards at 3, and that is Primite Lordly Load. That is because upon activation, you get to add any Primite card from the deck to the hand. And a lot of times, this does spur your opponent to Ash Blossom, because all these support cards are nuts. And then after that, once per turn, you can declare a normal monster name, and then special summon that normal monster from your hand, deck, or even graveyard. And now following suit to the other Primite cards, and one of the ones you might want to add and definitely want to see in a starter is Primite Roar. And that's because this is a quick effect spell card that at the cost of 2,000 life points, you declare a normal monster name, and then until the end phase, that normal monster or your Primite monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Now, that's just the primary effect. If you control no monsters when you activate that effect, you get to special summon that declared normal monster from your deck. So this card does have utility. And then while Roar is in your graveyard and your opponent normal summons a monster, you can target a normal monster you control or in your graveyard, and then banish one monster on the field with less attack than that normal monster. So not only can Roar summon out a monster, but once that vanilla monster either stays on the board or is used up as material, in the graveyard, it can be used as another resource with Roar to banish an opponent's monster when they normal summon. But I want to note, one of the main combos in this deck is either with Primite Roar or the Lordly Load, you get to special summon a vanilla monster from the deck, primarily the Cosmo Queen. And then if you're able to summon the Hugin to the board, synchro the Hugin as well as the Cosmo Queen off to go into your main boss monster, Chaos Angel. And it is this starter combo right here that actually puts the Primite Runick deck over the top. And you'll see countless times in the replay video that initially going into the Chaos Angel sometimes is an early GG even against some of the best meta decks. But moving on to some more Primite support, we have potentially one of the best cards in the deck, and that is Primite Drill Beam. And now, much like Roar, this is another quick play spell card that you reveal one Primite or normal monster from your hand to activate, or if you control a level 5 or higher Primite monster or any normal monster, you can just activate the card directly, which then this allows you to target one card, any card on the field, negate its effects, and if you do, banish that card. But if that is not enough, with the Drill Beam, if you control a Primite monster, you can set the Drill Beam directly from the graveyard face down on your field once per turn. And the last spell and trap support that is included in this deck is 2 of Primite Howl. And now with Howl, by declaring a normal card name, you take no battle damage if you battle with a Primite monster or that normal monster. But much like Roar, if you have no monsters when you activate Howl, you get to special summon that normal monster you declared directly from your deck or even your graveyard. And then following suit with the other Primite cards, it has a graveyard effect as well that you can banish it from your graveyard, target a normal monster in your grave or you control, and take control of an opponent's monster with higher attack than that normal monster. And then also, this is not a once per turn. And this is actually very abusable when we go into some of our other synchro choices, such as Psy-Frame Lord Omega. And then the last Primite card I want to mention is the boss monster itself, and that is Primite Imperial Dragon. And now, while it can only be normal summoned by tributing a vanilla monster, it can actually be summoned on your opponent's turn. And when it is tribute summoned, you negate the effects of all your opponent's monsters, as well as banish all monsters whose types or attributes match those of vanilla monsters in your graveyard. And as seen in the replay videos, sometimes once this dragon hits the board, it is game over. So summoning normal monsters, getting around heat waves, the constant interruption, and even the banishing from grave interruption effects, we're seeing why Primites are actually being utilized in a variety of decks and how they're exceedingly good when you mix them with other control decks like Runick. But we have to get to probably our most important tech, our vanilla monsters. And now in the replay video, I know you guys saw a lot of Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I do apologize because it did not make the final cut. Instead, we are going with the all-important Cosmo Queen. And that is because, as mentioned before, if we summon Cosmo Queen off our Primite support and then synchro it with the Yugioh, we are allowed to go into the all-important boss monster, Chaos Angel. And as seen time and time again in the replay videos, summoning Chaos Angel early on in the game is an early GG. Following suit in the vanilla monster line is our actual tuner, and that is Labradorite Dragon. And again, when this card is comboed with things like Yugioh, this makes other very important boss monster level 8 synchros, such as Psy-Frame Lord Omega. And once you see all the cards that it can actually put back from the banish zone into our graveyard, we're going to be seeing that we can constantly recycle our Primite support, such as the Howls or even the Roars, to add more interruption constantly during the opponent's turn. And then ending with the last two vanillas we are actually putting in the deck, we do have the level 4 Blazing Apache, as well as the level 4 Aqua Medor. And now, these are both important because as level 4s, we can actually normal summon them without any type of support. But as we're seeing that we're going into the Rage of the Abyss format, Mulcharmies are on the rise. So any deck that can utilize level 4 rank 4 combos to go into cards like Baguska will have an edge in the metagame, basically having a checkpoint for their combo line as well as a turn shutdown for the opponent if they cannot rid the board of the Baguska. And now getting to the last support cards of the deck, we do have a 1-of Terraforming, which obviously is really good, being able to add the Runick Fountain, or even a 1-of 1 Day of Peace. But then we have some of the most important support cards in the deck, such as Card Scanner, and honestly, in any Runick deck, this is broken. Basically, once per turn, adding the bottom card of your deck to the hand because Calling Spell is pretty much going to get you there no matter what. And then when you keep recycling the Runick cards and keeping things like the tip on the very bottom, not only is this adding to your hand every turn, but this adding any support card that you want, as well as recycling cards to add more draws to your hand. And now, where this deck lacks in some battle phase mechanics, these support cards definitely let us put the nail in the coffin. And the first one is Piercing the Darkness. And this is actually really good when you combine it with cards such as the Succumbing Song Morganite and the Time Tearing Morganite, which both are 1-ofs in this deck. As we see, Time Tearing Morganite every turn lets us draw 2, which adds to the snowball effect that this deck provides. And then the Succumbing Song Morganite actually goes a little step farther. Not only do you get to add the Time Tearing, but whenever you battle with your monsters, you get to deal double damage when they battle other monsters. So if you have the Piercing the Darkness and the Succumbing Song on the board, and you battle with one of your high-end vanillas or a monster summoned by a vanilla, not only are you gaining the difference, but you're dealing double damage. So even though you're skipping out on some of your battle phases with this deck, you will be able to make the gap of damage that you need to close the game with these support cards. And then the last card in this deck, bringing it to a nice 41, is Skill Drain. And honestly, it's pretty self-explanatory. You get this in the right scenario, and it is game over. But to go right into that extra deck, we do have 2 of Jerry. And again, this is a 2 of, not only because can you recycle the fountain, but being able to go into the level 4 rank 4 play for Bagooska, having a Jerry accessible to you is definitely a staple. After that, we do have the 2 of Hugin, because Hugin is the go-to and having 2 is pretty needed. And then the last Runick fusion is the Sleipnir, and that is because having it being instant spot removal for your main phase is never a bad thing, and then generating some tokens can actually help as well, because when you're utilizing the Primite support stuff, those tokens are normal monsters, so do keep that in mind. After that, moving to the Exceed section, we do have 2 number 41 Bagooska, the Terribly Tired Taper, and again, any deck that is able to utilize Bagooska in this meta game has an advantage, and this deck can put out Bagooska at any point in time. And now, since a lot of the combos with Bagooska involve blocking your opponent for 1 turn, we do have to think a little ahead, because a lot of times our battle phase is inaccessible during that 2nd turn. So on the off chance, you might have to skip 2 of your opponent's turns, and then we go into this bad boy, which is full armored Utopic Ray Lancer. So by discarding a spell, slap this on top of a Bagooska, punch over an opponent's monster, and then you will have 2 materials to go into Zeus that will have a board wipe. And as you guessed it, our next Exceed card is none other than Sky Arsenal Zeus, and that is at 1. But the other boss monster we can push out to the board relatively easier is a Typhon Sky Crisis. Push out a Typhon on one of your weaker monsters, and this will put you back into the game multiple times. But going into the synchro side of the deck, we do have 3 relatively good options. The first one being the most important, and that is Chaos Angel. And again, Cosmo Queen and Hugin making Chaos Angel from a light and a dark will prevent all your monsters from being destroyed by battle, and then all of your synchros are unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. Following suit on that synchro train is Psy Frame Lord Omega, and again, that's because the Labradorite and the Hugin easy access into the Psy Frame Lord, and again, this card being able to return your banished Primite stuff to your graveyard to utilize again and again is never a bad strategy. And the last synchro is a board wipe, and that is Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, and now a lot of players can debate if this could be replaced with something else, but honestly, there's quite a few times bringing this card out to board wipe and then even do some damage, maybe win in time, never a bad option. So Scarlet Red Dragon, definitely a card added to the Primite Runick deck. And the last card on the list is our Link monster, Donner Dagger for Hire, a decent little addition to the deck, but we've seen in some of the replays that spot removal really goes for game. And now the side deck is kind of a little bit different for everyone, but I do recommend, if you got some Charmies, that's cool. If you don't, then things like Solemns and Bribes, really nice, or even Curse Seal of Forbidden Spell. I definitely recommend Lava Golems and potentially Sphere Modes in that side deck, okay? But for the players that aren't really feeling things like main decking Heat Waves in a deck that you might go second in, or cards like the Piercing Darkness, we do have a few tech options that you could definitely be including in this deck. So maybe you want to side deck the 3 Heat Waves, we got you. We can include an easy 3 of with Synchro Zone, because as we see in a bunch of Runick decks, that the Synchro Zone will lock your opponent from battling, but then in this deck in particular, our boss monsters are synchros, so that will actually allow our Chaos Angel as well as Psy Frame Lord to continue battling after we lock the opponent. We have tested replacing 1 Howl with another Drill Beam, definitely something you could go with. Or if you want more consistency to the deck, you can even take out some, kind of offbeat cards like the One Day or even the Piercing Darkness if you're feeling confident and want to include cards like Pot of Desires to get that draw too. But keep in mind, if you go that route, banishing the 10 can be very dangerous. So definitely consider some of those techs like the Desires or the Synchro Zone when kind of teching this deck out or preparing to go to your local tournaments. And guys, that is the Runick Primite deck. If you like it or actually thought of anything that could make it even better, definitely comment that down below. But for the players that are wanting to see it in action with the replay videos, that will be flashing up above. But most importantly, guys, stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.